I met a gypsy.
Ben had there'll be a video coming out. The boys were filming, but Ben had a set of earphones in my ears with like a little headset, and then Ben had a microphone on the side of the track, and I think we did like some jumps first, and then we did a left hand right, which was pretty technical, and then we did like the right hand sweeper. So there was so much. I mean, for me, like, you know how much I love technique, obviously.
Yeah.
I love that whole thing. But that was like my first ever motocross coaching.
Oh, really?
That just wasn't dad telling me how to ride, or like me listening
Go faster.
Yeah, go on, mate. You're fucking slow.
Have a crack.
Yeah, just fucking send it. But yeah, it's like either just talking to people on the podcast about technique, or honestly, that's probably why I try and talk to people so much about it, is because like I feel like there's a lot of room to improve, obviously. And then like, it's just knowledge is power essentially. And you know, like I know from the martial arts stuff, it's just even a black belt is learning things constantly.
Oh, you're always learning.
It's just that philosophy, like motocross and coaching and learning and technique, it's just not the same thing for whatever reason. I feel like our sport's almost just like decades behind other sports when it comes to coaching. You know, guys out there that go and get private lessons, and like culturally it just isn't that much of a thing in our sport. It's getting more, but
I think there's been always a breakdown in the why part in my view. Just to go back, like setting that scene a bit more, if we just talk about that second section in the left-hand rut that we did, so initially I was like to Jace, right, we're going to do that left, right, left, and then I could see straight away that was going to be way too
much info.
Yeah, way too much information. Let's just break. We'll do the last. It was the third corner of the section, the left-hander. Let's just work on that, and it's taking the why and understanding what you're doing. That I don't believe that's been in there in my eye, or it certainly hasn't been to the level that is now coached at. Like if you look at Rhino's a really good example. He gives you the why
behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, not just do this.
Yeah.
But why? You know, that's I think we've really lacked that. That's a critical piece of information that people can understand, and even with a smartphone as well, because you can connect the why, because you know we were doing it right on the side of the track. I could say, look, you need to stand to this point, and I'll explain to you why. So as you transition to the seat, if you're set up for too long or sat down for too early, you know, your corner just becomes so long because you know, and I always say, right, and everyone has a slightly different variance on it. But I always say your corner starts when you sit down. And that's where, if we drill down into it, you were using the front brake really heavy once you'd sat down, but braking should be the majority of your braking, unless you really need to slow after you've sat, should be when you're standing up, right? So that's your braking zone. And you specifically, you could see that as soon as you stood longer or deeper into the turn in that specific corner, and it's pretty similar, give or take. I mean, you mentioned this a lot on the day. You take that scenario and you can apply it all over the track, now, right? Yeah. Give or take within reason. But for you, the braking sector of it, and this is where I break it down even further again, and it gets really detailed, but you've got to put one foot in front of the other, right? There was no point us talking about the exit because you had a big amount of work to do on the exit. And right in that hook, there was a real, I don't know if you can show some of that footage on here, overlay it, but there's that hook, right? But there was no point even talking about that because in my eyes, you had to come in and you had to start at the start, at step one, right? Stand further so you can do your braking and get settled because you've got really good control. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, right? You've got really good control of your bike standing up. It's like really evident for me to see. So you had better control to brake standing, get yourself sort of all settled and calm, and then sit down. Every time you would, it was 1 in 10 that you would get right if you sat too early. The whole way, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we started there, and then it was soften that rear front brake, sorry. And then after you'd sat, there was a big issue about, I call it being stacked, you know, so I always talk about...
Which makes so much sense to me now.
So like I'm probably going off on a tangent.
No,
People are going to be over it,
no.
but like the stacked part is being hips above your foot pegs, shoulders above your hips, head square above your shoulders, right? And you were getting like really off to the right hand. It was a left hand corner. You were sort of offsetting your weight to the right hand side.
Right, yeah.
So then I always say, and I would have said this a lot to you that day, for every action, there's got to be a reaction. So if your bike's leaning left and your body's leaning to the right, at some point you've got to bring that back.
It's got to go the other way.
Yeah. So just removing that piece to it so that your bike just stays settled at that point. And then what was it after that? I talked to you a lot about and making sure that you keep your leading leg high, especially when it gets to the deep part, but then turning it in. So you're rotating your foot in so it stays connected to the bike. Because if your leading leg, I always say it's like your compass, right? If it gets disconnected from the bike, then you start to sort of really do the splits, basically sitting on the seat, and you're fighting the bike at that point. And it's another phrase I use so much, is that it's not a wrestling match in motorcycle. You should be in complete harmony with the bike, at one with it all the time. So, I mean, we're just talking how it's like 15
just like 10,
meters.
10 feet of track.
Yeah.
Well, I think another cool, I guess, thing that we talked about.
I guess I get so like I could just go down a rabbit warren myself talking about that piece, because like
There's just so much in it.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is you should, I mean, not to like take the piss out of you, but show the first couple of laps and then show some of those ones at the end. There was a massive gain, man, in terms of what you were able to execute. Just remove speed. Yeah. Because speed is the byproduct of what
doing it properly. Yeah.
Your execution. Yeah.
And the thing that I noticed as well is that there was laps where I started going through it. Like if the first lap was a 1 out of 10, I started going through it every lap at probably like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Yeah. Which is a massive increase.
Let's like set the scene. A 6 or a 7 isn't based on doing it at the speed that Hurling's is doing it. A 6 or a 7 for you is executing it, you know?
Like technically correct, and it being comfortable and consistent.
I get that everyone doesn't need to be a technique doctor. Like it's not like, I'm not talking you should ride, everyone needs to ride like
Sexton,
should be a
window.
There's a window.
Yeah.
There's a window. And the window is that will allow you to have more confidence. Like you would have seen me coaching Jagger, and that's the reason I came over actually, because my boys sort of get like left on the side a little bit, because I'm pretty pinned at home. I've got a lot on my plate at the moment, and I wanted to spend this week with him and give him
Get off Instagram then.
Give him a bit of time, and you would have seen me with him, right? I didn't use a stopwatch all day, and I never told him to go faster. I just worked with him on like understanding, you know, the execution or the process of doing it correctly, and that's how I do it. I barely ever use a stopwatch unless you're at the level where you really need to understand that
what difference something makes versus something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that the one thing, so it's probably worth talking that everyone's probably doing just one thing wrong.
Yeah, true.
And then that one thing then leads to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And then but it starts with that one thing.
So heaps of phrases, right? That's the snowball.
The snowball.
Yeah.
And so for me, when it came to the cornering, is that I was just too heavy on the front brake, and it was like kind of like stabby. And then I was trying to slow down too much, but then I wanted to go faster through the turn. So then I'm accelerating way too early in the turn. And then because in my head, I'm chasing speed.
Let's drill into that a little bit, right? So, and you might be able to show footage of this as well. But so Jace was coming in, he was braking. So we're talking about how momentum assists you, right, in those scenarios. And he was braking really heavily with the front brake, which is it's a good thing. You weren't over. I never talked to you about the rear brake at all. I don't even know. I didn't even watch it. Well, it didn't. When I coach, I just pull everyone up. Bad shit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if that's a negative approach, but I don't talk about the good things, because all I can see is what you can do or what you can change to make you better. But you are so heavy on the front brake that it was just your reaction, and instinctively you're like, I need to use the power to get moving. So removing or reducing that front brake allowed you just to carry momentum into the corner. And it felt really uncomfortable for you because it's like, whoa, this first third of this corner is like,
I'm moving
so much quicker, right? But when you adjusted to that, then you are able to then execute or what's the word I'm looking for? You're able to utilize that momentum so much, and it made the corner easier. But the hard, and it's the same with the jumping. That was the exact same thing, right? I was like, mate, you need to take control of the jump as opposed to the jump taking control of you. And that in that instance, it was using the power. The instance we're talking about in the rut was like reduce the brake. That'll allow you just to roll in, and then you can then control the power when you need to. You're not actually using the power to actually get you back into the speed.
Yeah. So,
again, that's the action and the reaction, right? So the brake was the action, then you had to react with the throttle. Yeah. So then the bike gets,
and then you're going fast. You're like accelerating in a weird spot, so then you got to hit the brake again. You just end up chasing it, and
snowball.
It's like, and it's just like knowing that one thing, and then that. The crazy thing that I found, there was like one lap where, because I was kind of riding off the track, so I wasn't doing the track. I was just like basically pinning it in a straight line at this rut. And I was like, fuck, I've never gone this fast at a rut like this. But it didn't
every
feel
lap
fast.
I was like, dude, like if it wasn't a good lap, I was like, you didn't start the section like you mean to execute the section, right?
And so I think that's probably the interesting point, is that I wasn't trying to do the turn faster. I was just trying to get the right momentum to then flow through the turn. But it's like that is speed. So like you're now going faster. Yeah. So there's no thing like you've just got to go faster. It's like I could see how going faster would help me, as opposed to being some like it's hard to explain because like you feel like everyone's got a level of speed that they're at, and where they think like I'm going too fast.
I mean, I rode later in the day. I was like, this is gnarly out here, you know.
Yeah, and so everyone's got that like, fuck, I need to hit the brakes.
Yeah,
but it's like it's figuring out that you can go faster and it feels safer in certain aspects. And I think another cool thing as well. It's actually probably changed, like even since I left those 2 days. I really just want to go back and ride some tracks that I'm really used to riding.
Familiar with.
But now I can like put all this new shit into play.
Yeah.
But I've just been riding my motor wrong too.
Yeah, true.
Like,
can we just go back a second? You when you were talking about you were coming at a straight line to the corner, can you like sort of think back to that moment? When you were approaching the corner slower, do you think in your mind you were like already thinking about the corner? Like to me, that when I was watching you approach it and you weren't like just like I could say to you, I need to hear that engine get up and like accelerate. Like I want to hear the tone of the engine. I said once, I don't know, like if it'd be too hard to find that, but I said like if I was blind right now, I could hear that you didn't approach the turn fast enough. And what I'm asking you is, I believe when you are approaching it slower, you are already thinking too far ahead of yourself instead of being right there in the moment, like step by step. You're always just putting one foot in front of the other, because if you're thinking too far ahead, you're not right there, in that moment, like really present with what you're doing just there. That's my that's when I look at it and assess it. That's what I thought was happening. That's why I was like so big on, right, get it up, get that bike, like, get it accelerating to the turn. So you're like in the moment controlling the bike just there, as opposed to just dribbling along and then trying to like really do it really correctly all the way back there. You just got to do every piece of the equation at that.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.